What up, what up, what up, what up? This is the Philly Experience Podcast. New guy on the mic today, Tanner Gilmartin.
Not bad opening.
Max Gretzula, Tyre Hood of WIP. We got two very great topics for you guys today. The Sixers, everything with the Sixers. You got Ben Simmons drama, trade drama. Then you go ahead to head coaching drama in the NFL with the Rooney Rule involved, that Brian Flores action, and all the head coach hirings. So we're going to start right now with the 76ers, guys.
All right.
76ers, this is a wide open league right now. The East, wide open.
Right.
The only problem right now as a Sixers fan that you immediately go to is that guy, number 25, Ben Simmons, who has not stepped foot on a basketball court.
Who?
Except for, those drills and avoiding fines. What do the Sixers do going into the deadline, February 10th? I mean, what's there to do? Do you try to work out this trade? I know we talked about this last week, but I mean, the temperature is getting hotter on this situation. You have in Washington a little bit of trade sparks going on with potential, but we know how that is as Philadelphia fans going into a trade deadline. What do you guys think?
I mean, the temperature's getting hot for the trade, but the player that's getting traded is not. Like, that's the main issue here. Like, and it's one of the things that I said from the very beginning. I said it here and I said it on WIP. I said, if Ben Simmons doesn't play in this season, his value is going to go down and you're not going to be able to trade him. As a matter of fact, I was one of the ones I initially had said that the most likely time they're probably going to be able to trade him is around the trade deadline. But now that doesn't even look like it's going to happen. Looks like you're going to be paying a guy for basically doing absolutely nothing throughout the entire season. And to me, that's an issue. And also considering the fact that if you really look at the records from where they are now compared to last year, they're still in the same spot without Ben Simmons. So they're doing the damn thing without Ben Simmons. So his value also takes a hit from that. Not to mention his little attitude that he has, which I will get into that a little later. But the Sixers are in a good place considering, who we thought, who y'all thought Ben Simmons was. I knew from the fact that I didn't trust Ben Simmons. I wanted no parts of Ben Simmons. And unfortunately, we have to see this result. And it really does disappoint me. But if you guys think a trade is going to happen by the trade deadline, it ain't happening. I'm sorry. Like, why would you trade for somebody that's one, disgruntled, two, looks like he's an issue in the locker room, three is saying all these things and all these things turn out to be true? Like, let's be honest here, Max, what organization would really want that?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's been a fun season for the Sixers overall. I mean, you take a step back outside the Ben Simmons drama, you have Joel Embiid playing at the best level he's ever been at in his career. And Max, he's been an amazing improvement so far in his second year in the league. But to your Ben Simmons point, we've heard the James Harden rumors come out in the last week or two. And now the newest rumor now is Bradley Beal. Hopefully the Sixers will look into it. I know a lot of people in the city want a Simmons deal done. Some people are still being patient and saying, hey, they can wait till the offseason, even though I'm assuming that's fewer than what most people think. But at the end of the day, Sixers playing well as a team right now. They're winning without Ben Simmons. And when it comes down to it, I think if the Sixers make a trade for Simmons now and they settle for a couple of role players, and that's not to say Halliburton, Buddy Hield in Sacramento are not good players. But the question is, will they elevate the Sixers into winning an NBA championship? And that's where I have some pause. So the question is, do you be patient and maybe get a Harden in the offseason, or try to be a little bit more aggressive, maybe get a Beal before this deadline happens? Or do you just go back to the Kings, which this call all been settled a month ago, and said, hey, we'll do the trade with Halliburton and Buddy Hield? So,
well, the Kings is already out. They already apparently, rumor has it, they're out on Ben Simmons.
That's what I'm saying. What if the Sixers call back and say, hey, we'll do the deal your original deal that you wanted? It'd be hard for them to say no, right?
I mean, you had a chance to finally get rid of him, and you would have gotten some decent, assets back. And I understand, like I said, Daryl Morey doesn't want 20 cents on the dollar for Ben Simmons. I completely understand that. But I'm sorry, like, everybody botched this entire situation. Ben Simmons botched this situation by not playing. You botched the situation by not trading him when you were supposed to. It's a fumble all the way around. I'm sorry. Like, you should have taken just take what you can get. right? You ain't getting another superstar from Ben Simmons. You're just not.
Asking price incredibly high for Ben Simmons, a guy who, as we mentioned, hasn't played a game for the Sixers. He's out $19 million because he declines to play. And if I'm in Ben Simmons' shoes, first of all, very appreciative that I'm in the NFL or the NBA and I'm getting money to play a sport that I love. But, there's different things to it. We talk about his mental state and stuff like that. That obviously we're not getting into. We're getting into Ben Simmons, the player. But let's talk about that drama too with Shaquille O'Neal.
Let's get into it
real quick.
Let's get into
before
it.
We continue with this Sixers talk because a few days ago, Shaquille O'Neal on Inside the NBA talked with his co-hosts about how soft another player was on the Sixers, comparing him to a crybaby. Talk about that other guy on the Sixers, not Joel Embiid, but the other guy. And
it's funny to me too.
Apparently, after the show was done airing, Shaquille O'Neal got a DM on I believe Instagram.
Yep, it was on Instagram
from Ben Simmons, and all O'Neal said was that he was very mad in those DMs. My thing is, why is Ben Simmons watching Inside the NBA instead of doing all this other stuff that he should be doing? I mean, he doesn't want to play basketball, but he'll sit on the couch and watch the Sixers play.
Man, get off your ass and fight.
Who knows?
Damn it.
Maybe he was in the gym watching it, happened to be on, and he was like, hold on a second.
I don't know.
I got it.
Oh, yeah, he's in the gym. Oh, yeah, he's in the gym working out. Oh, shit, Shaquille O'Neal's talking shit. You know what? F you.
No, he's in his basement working out plans for his upcoming wedding. But I mean, this whole situation is frustrating on, I'm sure, every side that we talk about. The Sixers organization, Ben Simmons, like, why? He's probably thinking, why haven't I been traded yet? I just want to play basketball now, but I won't play it for the 76ers. And you have Daryl Morey, who potentially could be getting held back from upper staff in the Sixers, saying you have to get a better deal for Ben Simmons, or they think maybe this whole thing is going to blow over. But I think it's all past this right now. But
from the Ben Simmons side of things, how much of this is also that we have to think about, like his team with Rich Paul and all saying, hey, you're only allowed to say this. Like Rich Paul, if he knew about Simmons DMing Shaq before it was sent, I'm sure he would have been like, no, you're not sending that.
Rich Paul, by the way, finding himself in headlines for his own love stuff going on with Adele over there too. So he's got a lot on his plate.
Those rumors were shot down, by the way.
Right. And for people that don't know, apparently Adele canceled a couple shows in Vegas. Apparently, maybe according to some sources, not official, because of her drama between her boyfriend Rich Paul. But going back to these trade rumors, on The Athletic, David Aldridge, Josh Robbins were talking about how they heard from close sources to Bradley Beal that he is conflicted. He was saying that at one point earlier in the season, he wanted to stay a Wizard.
Even last season, too, he was like, I'm not leaving Washington. This is where I'm meant to be.
Yeah.
But he is now unsure if the team can surround
He's
him.
now AKA, I'm getting the hell out of here.
Right. With difference-making players. And there's been no official request by him or his team to be moved. But it does propose an interesting situation. You have a player not happy in Washington,
All right.
a player not happy in Philadelphia. Which player's better? We kind of know.
I was about to say that shouldn't even be a question.
But Bradley Beal wants to be surrounded by players who will make a difference. You put him on a roster with Joel Embiid, and you surround him with a cast like you have Maxey, Matisse Thybulle, all those guys. He'd be in an ideal situation. Bradley Beal is 28 years old.
I mean, we talked about this scenario. We talked about all the trade scenarios and what could possibly be. We talked about what kind of impact Bradley Beal would have. Oh, my God. I think that would pretty much be the play to take the Sixers over the top. You would finally have
He dropped
a closer
60 against the Sixers
True.
last season.
Yes, he did. It's like he would circle Philadelphia and just be like, I'm gonna wreck these motherfuckers.
Doesn't have to move far up the coast. You know, it would only be a quick trip up from DC to Philly.
No, it would not be a long trip, but like we talked about this, man. Bradley Beal would be that closer that would finally take the Sixers
Catch and
over the
shoot
hump.
guy.
Here's the question, though: will the Sixers and Wizards be able to come to an agreement where Beal and Simmons 1-for-1 is fair?
Now, this to me seems like a situation that won't take less than a week to figure out.
Exactly. So
No.
the question is, would you be willing to add Maxey in the package for Beal along with Simmons
No.
or Thibault?
I think in the beginning of the season, most of us would have probably said yes. I'm saying hell to the no.
For Maxey?
No.
What about Thibault?
Maybe.
It's a great defensive piece.
Yeah, I was about to say I like his defense, man, and you need defense in the playoffs, dude.
I agree. I think if it comes down to doing a Thibault and Simmons for Beal, it would be hard to not pull the trigger on that, but I definitely still hesitate.
Right. If you bring Beal into Philadelphia, he doesn't need to dominate the ball.
Right.
But
This is
when
true.
Embiid sits, he can be that guy.
The funny thing is, Washington just knocked off the Sixers in Philadelphia without Bradley Beal.
Right.
So that's
true.
a very surprising game. But right now, the Wizards, the 11th seed in the Eastern Conference, they're not even in the play-in situation 7 through 10. So that has to factor into their decision
And
making.
Beal did say if there was a play-in situation, he would count that season as a failure.
Yeah, you can't blame them either, because at the end of the day, first of all, the whole playing thing is its own different story in a whole. I mean, whether you agree with it or not, but to be the 11th seed and not even have that opportunity. I mean, if he's saying getting into the play-in 7 through 10 is a failure, I mean, they're not even there right now. They're below that. So
Right.
that has to factor into his decision making even more.
And that's a team that started off really hot. The Wizards started
Yeah.
off really hot and just with blown, what was that, a 30-point to the Clippers?
I think
blown 30-point lead.
I
something like that.
honestly think the big thing with Bradley Beal is him changing his mind. Like at first, like we would hear rumors, and we would even hear him in the press conferences, being like, listen, this is my home. This is where I'm going to play. Like, this is where I want to play. This is where I want to be. I don't want to be traded. We vividly remember him saying these things. And now there's a rumor coming out. I'm not 100% sure if I want to stay here. And I don't blame him. Now, I don't know what took his ass so long to figure that out.
This team drafted him 3rd overall in 2012.
Like, I really don't know what took him that long to figure it out, that this team has not done a very good job of surrounding him or John Wall when John Wall was there with talent that they could be competable, for them to compete in the Eastern Conference. Hopefully, maybe a trade can work out. I don't know. I don't see anything happening within a couple weeks.
What if you had to pick between Harden or Beal? Who would you rather have?
Beal, because he's younger.
Fair enough. But here's the thing. Bradley Beal, at the age of 28 right now, he's having, for his standards, a pretty down year. I mean, he's averaging only 23 points per game. That's way below his average of last season at 31 points per game.
23 points is a down year. I think we would take that easily.
Let me tell you this as well.
It's 0 points
30%.
on the bench.
30% 3-point percentage. I mean, that's Russell Westbrook territory from beyond the arc.
Well, yeah, you would probably, if you had a skill set like Bradley Beal and you were the only damn player that was on the Washington Wizards, you would shoot that percentage too.
What I'm saying is Sixers can use some of this to their advantage. Beal, in the last year of a contract, I believe, for not a poor year, but a down year compared to what he's done in the past. Maybe with him also having a little bit of say towards the front office with, hey, I don't want to stay in Washington long term. That's going to force Washington's hand to make a move. And maybe you get out of here with, hey, we keep Thibault, keep Maxey, but Simmons for Beal could get done possibly one.
I hear you.
And Beal has to say that.
And then send Simmons to basketball hell in Washington. Will never win.
From that question, though, would you rather, if you had the chance and you would be trading, you'd probably be trading more for this specific scenario. But if you were the Sixers, you had the opportunity to get James Harden now before the trade deadline, or wait next season, get Bradley Beal.
Mhm.
What would you take? Because the reason you have to be so anxious is Joel Embiid, player of the month, playing the best basketball of his career. And we know this is not a guy who stays healthy the entire season. This is a waste, to say, of talent. And the important part about these trade situations is not who we're trading, who we're getting back. In my opinion, it's how are we helping Joel Embiid become a champion in Philadelphia.
Oh, I'm taking Bradley Beal in second in this.
You're
I would
waiting
get him. I would
next season.
wait if I need to. I'm waiting if
Yeah.
I need to. I mean, I know that Embiid's having a superstar year, but if my only option, and what was the first part of the question with you talking about the role players? Is that the other deal or the Harden deal?
Right.
The role players,
Yeah.
like and again, I'm not like Halliburton's 21 years old. 4 years from now, this guy could be top, I don't know, 25 player in the league. Who knows? Because he's a point guard with 6'8", can really do it all in a way. He's shooting at a high percentage from beyond the arc too. And Buddy Hield has always been a great 3-point shooter, but need difference making players to win a title. Beal and Embiid paired together. Beal, a shooting guard by trade, but has the ability to ball handle and close games like Jimmy Butler did when he was here as a Sixer. I'm taking that all day, especially if you can find a way to keep Maxey, because you don't want to have Beal as your point guard, he's a shooting guard, but you want to have the ability to throw it to him late in games and for him to create.
It's
If
funny.
I have to include Thibault in the deal, I would do it.
It's funny that we're talking about this specifically because I talked about this last week with Sean Bell on WIP. A lot of people want to make the move now. I mean, a lot of people want to wait to the wait. A lot of people want to wait. A lot of people want to see, if you can grab one of these guys via free agency. I have two issues with that. One, it's not necessarily guaranteed. It's not a guarantee.
It's going to be able to play even.
I was
close
just
to
about
what
to
he
get
was
into
playing.
that.
I think
Number one, it's not a guarantee that you're going to be able to grab one of these superstars in free agency. Number two, it's also not a guarantee that you're going to get another damn season like this out of Embiid. We said this the previous year, and they basically wasted that year. And Embiid was on fire.
Because the knee.
This year, Embiid is on fire. We're talking about an MVP-like season if Embiid continues to stay healthy this season. I'm sorry, but you cannot continue to take advantage of the fact that this man is putting up these kind of numbers.
But here's the problem. Getting a deal for a player who's not a superstar is not going to win you a title. The Bucks are still going to be better than the Sixers. The Nets are still going to be better than the Sixers. And to be honest with you, the Heat might even be better than the Sixers.
I agree with you. But what's the one thing that we always say that this team needs? Bench depth. I think we can arguably sit here and say that the bench depth kind of does need to change. If bare minimum, if all you can get for Ben Simmons is some bench depth, I will take that at this point.
No. Stop it. You're gonna get us kicked off of the air. Stop it with that.
Okay. What did I say in the beginning of the show? I said that this team is doing just as good without Ben Simmons, right? So you don't need Ben Simmons necessarily to carry you over the threshold, and you need bench depth.
You have to think about Daryl Morey, though. He's come out and said it multiple times. He's willing to be patient, and he wants what he wants. He's not going to settle for role players.
At this point, you don't have a choice. Ben Simmons has no fucking value. None whatsoever.
But listen, the East is, like I was saying earlier, wide open. You got the Bulls, 32 wins, the Heat, 33, Sixers have 31 wins. So if you go ahead and you trade Ben Simmons for just role players,
we don't want to, I hate using that word because Hield, and at this point, he's kind of probably a role player. Halliburton, he'll probably start for the Sixers over Thibault, I'm assuming.
Right.
But I get your point. He's a role player on a team in a starting five. He's not a star. He's not even, obviously not a superstar. He's not a star either yet.
But with that being said, you're still competing with the Bulls roster. Why?
And also, you got to remember, right now the Bulls, even though 32 wins, they have some injuries. Caruso's banged up. Lonzo Ball's banged up. They're dealing with some issues.
So why do that? Get those players, not a big star player, and then the next season you have those guys
available, and you don't have any value or trade.
Exactly, you don't have Ben Simmons to trade. Yeah,
I do hear y'all, and trust me, I do. But the way I see it is, you're wasting another MVP-like year from Embiid. Again, because let's be honest here, Sixers ain't going to the finals. They're not. They're not coming out of the East.
They could, though. That's what we're talking about. They could.
They're not. They are just as good as they were last year without Ben Simmons. They are just as good. They're not getting out of the East.
The whole thing is making them a better team with these trades.
Exactly my point. We need bench depth. How long do you would you rather? Do you want to play George Niang in the playoffs off the bench?
Give Ben Simmons away.
You talk about him all the time. If that,
because at least you got something back. Well, I got those 2 jars of peanut butter. I'm happy.
And well, guess what? And I can purchase the jelly via free agency. But at least I know I did something to make this team better in an attempt to make this team better. You staying stationary and not doing a damn thing, that's not helping Embiid at all.
Morey
That's
will
wasting
make a
another
deal
year.
before the deadline. It's just going to be, is it going to be the big fish deal or is it going to be the George Hill deal again?
10-day contract.
Yeah, I
It's
don't
gonna
want
be the
that.
George
And I
Hill
don't,
deal from
and I
last
don't
year.
want no fucking George Hill deal. That pissed me off. Man did absolutely nothing here last year.
He also was hurt, right? When he first got.
Yeah, he was hurt when he first got here.
Yeah.
So the man didn't play for like a good, 2 weeks?
Well, we tried that strategy last year and it sure as hell didn't work out. So I don't want to go out there and get like a veteran guy who's a locker room guy, a leader kind
I
of
don't
guy.
give a damn about that.
You know? And again, it's kind of funny because we don't give a damn about that. But then we talk about Jalen Hurts and we say, oh, he's a leader.
Oh, that's a
He's
different
veteran.
situation.
You know, but at the end of the day with the Sixers, I think I'm being patient because Joel Embiid, even next season, nothing's guaranteed in life. But the way he's playing right now, what cause for concern besides the previous history, of course, but right now in this moment, being 100% healthy and dominating, do you have to like? You can't just say, "Hey, we can't be patient because MB can get hurt next year." I mean, that's just you can't. I feel like you can't live like that.
You don't have a choice but to live like that. How long do you think Embiid's injuries are going to hold up? Big men with knee issues have a history
It is true.
of not going long in the NBA.
That is true.
Yao Ming, Greg Oden.
Can you get one more year out of Embiid at a dominant level like this?
But you're playing with house money at this point. This
He's
is the
only
second year in a row.
Though.
Yeah, only. But them knees are like in their 50s. Let's be honest
I
here.
think if listen, Bradley Beal. Oh, if we were talking about this a week ago, Bradley Beal's not in the conversation. These rumors have just surfaced. And we were even talking about this in the offseason. We were talking about Harden in the offseason. There's no shot that the Sixers and Nets are going to make a trade right now. You wouldn't assume, at least, midseason when they're competing for a title one, especially in their same conference and same division. So I think that's out of the picture until at least the offseason. But I'm thinking in Daryl Morey's shoes right now, this second, I don't think he's going to make a deal for Simmons at this deadline. I think we all would like to see something happen just because it's fun and exciting. But I don't think at this moment in time, Morey's ready to just say, hey, if I can't get Beal and Harden, you know what, I'll settle for this trade.
Yeah.
For lower players.
And I mean, before getting into just this upcoming game today against the Mavs, I mean, you're in a dire situation here where a decision needs to be made, though, whether it is to wait or to pull that trigger on the trade.
It's hard because look, they just had 5 games in a row at home. They went 4-5 in the home stand. Like they're playing great basketball. Maxi's shooting 10 points higher from 3. He's shooting over 40% from 3.
Right.
It's hard. Like that. Everybody on the team saying, Morey, we're balling out right now. Give us some help.
There's still this dark cloud, though, over the team with whether or not they're going to trade Ben Simmons. And for those listening right now, we're going to put a poll out on our story after the show. If you are in charge of the 76ers, are you pulling the trigger on that trade or are you waiting until the season's over? Follow us on Instagram at the Philly Experience Podcast or on Twitter, the Philly EXP1.
Just prove these guys wrong.
We're going to get to that last segment of the Sixers talk right now with this upcoming matchup against the Mavs, who are 29-23. Earlier, we talked about how the Sixers are 31-20. They had that 5-game win streak ended by the Wizards 106-103. And Luka is coming off a 40-point night, but it was against OKC. What do you guys want to see from this Sixers team going against teams like the Mavs, going into the future of the schedule without Ben Simmons and the team on the team? This team has played impressively. But what do you want to see against big teams like the Mavs?
Go ahead.
Well, I want to see, first of all, you're talking about a team that's 29-23 in the Dallas Mavericks. The Sixers right now, Joel Embiid is going to play tonight. I have to see and do some research quickly to see if Kristaps is going to play. I don't know if the announcement has been made about injuries and whatnot, who's questionable. But Luka's the main guy. We know he's the lifeblood of the Dallas Mavericks, 26 points per game for them, 8.9 assists, 8.8 rebounds. I mean, he does it all. He's an all-star caliber player. But he's a guy that the Sixers are going to have to lock in on. But that's not to say they can't get the job done on the road. It starts at 10 o'clock, by the way. Any of you guys notice that? 10 o'clock start?
Well, at least I'll have something to watch when I'm working tonight.
So, I mean, it's all right. Dallas is not California, so I don't understand it. But it is what it is, nationally televised game.
Yes.
But if you literally look at this roster from the Dallas Mavericks, Luka Doncic, Kristaps Porzingis, Jalen Brunson, Tim Hardaway Jr., Dorian Finney-Smith. I mean, they're good, but nothing you look at and where you're like, oh, this team is top 3 team in the Western Conference.
And by the way, going over the injury report, Furkan out, Seth Curry questionable, Shake Milton out, and they just keep. You have to list Ben Simmons as out on the injury reports.
Can we just remove him from the injury report?
Porzingis out. Brown out, Hardaway Jr. out.
Wow. Okay. So you're looking at it right now. That's 2 of the 4 top leading scorers for the Dallas Mavericks. Hardaway coming in, averaging 14 points per game, and Kristaps averaging 19.2 points per game.
Mavs are still favorite.
So,
oh yeah, home field.
Home field, T. We're on the court here. I don't want to hear home field.
Home field.
Anyway,
that doesn't do it.
2 of 4 leading scorers
out.
So again, you're going to see a lot of Luka. You're going to see a lot of Jalen Brunson. You're going to see some Dorian Finney-Smith in there. But at the end of the day, I don't see why the Sixers can't go in here and get the job done. Korkmaz, that's another guy we continue to talk about where he has his games where he's good. He has his games where he doesn't look like he should be in the league. But that's not to say he hasn't been a productive player in his time here in Philadelphia. Also, the longest tenured Sixer, I believe, Joel Embiid, I think so. I have to double check because people will say Joel Embiid, but I'm pretty sure Korkmaz was in here in Philadelphia beforehand. But losing only Curry's a big part. First of all, another thing to add, going back to Dallas, where he was traded from to Philadelphia so that Josh Richardson and a pick. But my prediction on tonight, I think the Sixers get the job done. Yeah. I mean, can they stop Luka Doncic? Probably not, but can they, double him maybe a little bit, keep the ball out of his hands, force him to pass it?
Yeah.
You'll probably see, if that happens, you'll see a lot of assists tonight from Luka.
Both teams are pretty slow in pace wise, but the Mavs have that slightly better defense. So are they going to be able to hold Joel Embiid? Is it going to be a 30-point night for Joel Embiid, or is it going to be a 18 to 20-point night for Joel? And they're going to have, it definitely helps them with the injuries on the Mavs. But yeah,
Joel Embiid is the longest tenured Sixer, by the way. So Korkmaz is not the longest tenured Sixer. There should
be no reason that the Sixers don't go to Dallas and win this game.
You're absolutely correct. Should be being the operative word, and I do have them winning this game despite home court advantage. I do have them winning this game with the list of injuries, especially one of the biggest ones being Tim Hardaway Jr., their main shooter. But,
luckily they don't have to deal with his ass tonight because he's not even playing. Yeah. Luckily.
Yeah, luckily. I'm just frustrated because the bench does need to be worked on. That's my big thing. The bench needs to be worked on some way, shape, form, or fashion.
Not a big Charlie Brown guy.
Who? You talking about from the Peanuts?
I'm sure he's heard that a bunch of times.
I hate to say that, but hey, I'm sorry, but this bench definitely needs work. It does.
We will have to see tonight at 10 o'clock on ESPN. We're going to switch into our next highly discussed topic.
Oh, boy.
It is head coaching, hiring, head coaching drama in the NFL. Let's start off with the drama. Right. By now, a lot of us have already heard about that Brian Flores drama. He's actually been discussing it on TV shows. Mm-hmm. And some may say putting his career on the line. I don't think so. I think he's bringing to attention a problem in the NFL that so many other head coaches are going to start stepping up. I mean, this is heading into the NFL offseason after the Super Bowl. So you got coaches already like Hugh Jackson talking about how he sort of dealt with the same situation. But just going over it, this kind of started, I guess you could say, with a Belichick text message. Go figure. Textgate.
Vice has been always involved in scandals.
Added to Belichick's legacy. But there was a text message from Belichick to Brian Flores congratulating him by mistake, saying congratulations for the New York job, blah, blah, blah. This was 3 days before Brian Flores even went for an interview with the Giants. Now, that brings to also how he was treated with a Denver interview where Elway apparently showed up not in the best shape.
Not in the best shape.
That's
That's a nice way to put it, right?
Yeah,
I was about to say
these
this.
are allegations.
You
You
really
gotta
put it
listen
nice.
Gotta listen to both sides.
All right. Well, I'm gonna tell you,
Because I know
some bitch
Elway-
showed up drunk.
Elway,
Podcast, not a law firm. This is a podcast.
Elway came out, said that was untrue.
Allegedly.
So there's 3 sides to that story, really. But my thing is with the Giants, and I give Flores a ton of credit for this. 3 days after getting a congratulatory text message from Belichick for the Giants job, Flores thinking, okay, they already know who they're getting. They're just interviewing me just for show. And that brings up the Rooney Rule and all that stuff. But to go into that room, interview with the Giants staff, the organization, and try to change their mind in a way, thinking that maybe they'll hear me, they'll give me an actual chance to be the head coach. And obviously Dable gets hired. That's a huge amount of credit to him for even going through with that meeting.
Yeah. Do you guys think the Rooney Rule has failed overall?
Yes,
Hell
100%.
yeah, it's failed.
But Mike Tomlin. He's when you think of the Rooney Rule, you think of more coaches of color get a deserved chance to interview or get a job as a head coach. And right now it's failed.
I think one thing here too, I'm looking up. I know there was another African-American coach just hired, and I'm trying to do the research on it as we speak, but I thought it was the Bears, but it wasn't because that's
No, it
Matt
wasn't the Bears.
Eberflus. T, do you have it off the top of your head?
No, it's not off the top of my head, but you know what? Going into this, the Rooney Rule has failed. And as a matter of fact, I can remember when I first heard about the Rooney Rule. As a matter of fact, it was a discussion, in one of my classes in high school. And that the funny part is we were having a discussion and the teacher had asked, what are some holes, in this? And my immediate response was, well, for real, all an organization has to do is just interview a minority. Like they can just be like, they can ask him 1 or 2 questions and literally be like, okay, well, that's all we have for today. Thank you for your time. And boom, you took care of the Rooney Rule. Like there's no wiggle room. Like it's so easy to just get rid of get rid of the Rooney Rule.
For that.
Right. There shouldn't need to be a rule. First
It's
off,
also named after a white man, that rule.
yeah,
Named after a white man.
go figure.
But
Anyway,
so for me, the thing I find wrong with the Rooney Rule is you are offering better draft picks to hire a black head coach.
Oh, so yeah, just realized what I was thinking of. I
And
think it was the
Dave-
Bears GM.
oh yeah, he was a former player.
Yes.
He's a former
Yes.
player. I got you.
Got it.
But yeah, right now it's as of last week, it was Mike Tomlin is the only black head coach because Flores got fired. David Coley got fired from the Texans.
That David Coley thing was that was a screw job because you're giving a horrible ass roster, and basically you don't have the talent to win. You lose, finish the season with a losing record, and you still get fired. Yet and still, the Texans was probably out of all the worst teams in the NFL, they were probably the most competitive.
Well, here's the thing. I agree with what you're saying 100%. They probably were the most competitive out beating one of the worst teams in football. But that organization from the higher ups and the personnel on the field, too, the whole Deshaun Watson thing kind of screwed them over from the start in the offseason. And at the end of the day, I know they went out and hired him in the last offseason. But coming into this year, it's like, if you're talking about the Houston Texans from 2 years ago to where we are right now, nothing at all has changed. I mean, you can say they fought hard. They won a couple games last year, sure. But even if he's still an NFL head coach, I mean, in a way, you could say, hey, like, I know he's working his whole life to become an NFL head coach, but that situation just sucks. I mean, he got treated disrespectfully too.
They kind of were just finding a guy to fill in.
Yeah, like,
yes,
you
hired him to basically go through a season just to say, okay, thank you for your time, coach. Get the hell out.
And that messes with a man's career.
Exactly. Yes. But the players have gotten his back and things of that. Well, first off, the Texans organization has been under scrutiny before for some racial things in the past. So their track record ain't the cleanest. But you're right. That does mess up with a man's career. And it's such a shame because once again, I talked about this on WIP. You're talking about guys like Eric Bieniemy. You're talking about guys that deserve a chance.
Todd Bowles.
You're talking about Todd Bowles.
Did Eric Bieniemy not get offered a head coaching spot?
And that's what
he didn't.
He did not get offered.
He didn't. Now, a lot of people on WIP has informed me that Eric Bieniemy had a past as a player, but that was as a player. Like, his track record is clean now as a coach. Not to mention the fact that he's one of the cogs that engineers one of the best, if not the best, offense in the NFL. Why in the hell would you not at least consider that man for a head coaching position? Not to mention the fact that Todd Bowles, which usually plays around with nothing but junk by the end of the year of a secondary down there in Tampa Bay, and is still able to.
Well, hold on. Tampa Bay's defense and secondary was tremendous these last couple of years.
Yes, but the players that he's worked with, he's had to work with second and third stringers.
Here's the thing. So the Todd Bowles argument, though, is he's had his opportunity to be a head coach, and he was terrible.
It's the Jets.
It's the Jets.
I know, but I'm just saying he was terrible. And I look back, and you talk about previously Josh McDaniels even. I mean, he had to work how many years to get another head coaching job when he fell on his face in Denver back in 2010.
He had a chance to be a head coach again, but he said, "No, I'm good. I'm going back to New England."
Right, with the whole thing with the Colts a couple years back, I do remember that. But there's still 4 head coaching vacancies: the Houston Texans, the Miami Dolphins, the Minnesota Vikings, and the New Orleans Saints. Obviously, not the Miami Dolphins, but do you think the Vikings, Saints, or Texans have any shot of hiring Flores, or maybe give it an opportunity?
Here's where I'm going to disagree with what Tanner said. You said that Brian Flores, this isn't necessarily a career ending. This might be this is not a career ending.
He said it would affect his career.
It will. Bringing this to the forefront of the NFL will affect your career to some degree. Colin Kaepernick, bare minimum, is at least a backup quarterback. And man,
well, we don't know that at this point.
Well, yeah,
at that time, yeah.
Then you could at least say he's at least a backup quarterback. Yes. Hell, you can even say that he was a low-end starter at that time. I can honestly back then probably put him
above Gardner Minshew.
Oh, God, yes.
Probably.
But he didn't get a job. But in the end, the NFL settled with him. That's the difference. I think it is a career-defining moment.
It's crazy how it works out, right? When you call up the NFL opposed to when you do stuff that puts your image in jeopardy, you get more chances. Say, for example, Urban Meyer.
Let me ask you this question.
The
Miami Dolphins, with this whole thing with Flores, talk about another organization that's in some hot water.
That's another situation.
Who's gonna accept? It's an NFL head coaching position, so there's somebody out there that's gonna be like, yes, I'm definitely jumping at this opportunity. But with all these rumors coming out, $100,000 to lose games on purpose. Apparently, Brian Flores was offered.
If he provides
his job, if they're offered,
first off,
you have to have some hesitation, right?
If Brian Flores proves that to be true, oh my God,
So this is what I understand happening. Brian Flores was hired, and the organization was under the impression that obviously they would become a better team with the higher draft picks that they get because of tanking. So Ross goes up to Flores. I don't know if it was a text message, conversation, says, you know what? Why don't you take a vacation? Okay. I'll give you $100,000 and just, lose this game. Now this is a coach who's trying to prove himself in the NFL. Why would he want to lose on purpose with then his image is not a winning coach? And when he's trying to prove himself, he's of course he's going to want to win and he's going to try to win.
Right.
But you bring up that thing with Fitzpatrick being benched to an in. Was that an organizational situation where they were like, you have to bench Fitzpatrick. We have to see how Tua is doing.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think earlier on, especially last season, it was obvious that Fitzpatrick was the better quarterback.
And the Dolphins were supposed to be a bad team, and they've played
not last year, the previous year.
They've played great. 2000. Well, Flores was hired in 2019.
Yeah. So
not this past season.
Because remember, he was on Washington last year.
Yes, that's
Right.
what I meant.
And obviously he didn't try to lose because you look back at their season and it was not a bad season.
It wasn't like
what did they go 10-6?
Yeah, I believe so.
Before it went to 17 games.
And I mean, shoot,
They were close to
barely missed the playoffs.
And even this year, like you go on a 7-8 game winning streak and you finish what a 9-8 record.
My thing is this: you go back to your point about talking about Brian Flores losing on purpose. Why did Brett Brown agree to lose on purpose then? Going 10-72. He knew they were losing on purpose.
Yeah, Brett Brown knew the situation when he was going in.
Right.
2019, the Miami Dolphins were a team that was built to win. They just can't get over the hump because the Patriots are in the way and the Bills are an up-and-coming team.
Quarterback that was good enough.
Correct. You know this. So Brian Flores kind of sort of knew the situation, but 2019 was it 2019 when Tua was drafted, or it was 2020?
2020.
Okay, so the next year they draft a quarterback. Typically, when an organization draft a quarterback, they usually gives the head coach a little bit more leeway to kind of, be able to work some kinks out with the quarterback because most quarterbacks don't come out perfect. But they didn't even give him a chance to really work with Tua. And let's be honest here, Tua's not perfect either. I mean, we saw him in Alabama. Tua's not that perfect, not a perfect quarterback either. So you're pretty much working with junk.
Well, yes. Out of all these teams right now, you can't say the Vikings. The Vikings are pretty good, and the Saints usually have their head on straight. But Dolphins or Texans, I mean, it's a toss-up between what's the worst job. You have an organization on one side basically saying, hey, lose on purpose.
I think.
And then you have the other organization with the Texans that just have nothing. They have no draft picks. They have a quarterback in turmoil situation. They don't have any good players on their roster, really. They like, what do they have? Their fan base and they are an organization right now that, and also coming out with the rumors for David Culley, of course, that's negative. I mean, and everything around the Texans right now is negative. They don't have anything positive.
Honestly,
no young superstar like Justin Jefferson in Minnesota, no young talent that you can look at.
I think a team that might be in a worse position, and this might be surprising, but I think the Saints are actually in a worse position because they're not sure where they are. You have Sean Payton leaving.
Some players.
They have negative $60 million that they have to.
They still have to pay off Drew Brees' contract.
They have no idea.
Michael Thomas,
wait a second. You have to pay Drew Brees even if he retires?
They have no idea what
if you remember
quarterback. There should be some clause in his contract that says if you retire.
Real quick. So Brandon Brooks retired. What was it? A week or two ago?
Yes.
So the Eagles have to rework that contract because he was still on the books for next year.
They reworked it a little bit before they came out officially saying that.
Exactly.
So he's on the books next year.
Drew Brees, yes.
Okay.
Brandon Brooks is on the books for next year. So horrific. Yes. Drew Brees, I believe, retired.
He's not even going to play a single game. And it was a huge contract.
So yes, Drew Brees retired, I believe, with years left on his contract, but they're still paying for that.
The Saints will wait until later this summer to file the retirement paperwork, which will designate Brees a post-June 1st cut and defer $11.5 million in dead money into 2022. His 2021 salary cap remains the same, and the remainder will be paid off next offseason. This was March 14th, 2021.
That's why the agents get paid the big bucks in negotiations.
So he's talking about that happened.
Hey, if my quarterback retires, you still owe him money.
That man is getting 2 checks from the Saints and from NBC. I'm gonna be Drew Brees when I grow up.
Back to the Eric Bieniemy point, though, real fast. We haven't really heard anything. Like last offseason, he was a big name, getting a lot of interviews. It's been quiet this offseason, maybe because he was still playing in the playoffs, just lost to the Bengals. But do you think he's still a candidate for one of these spots, or is it like, all right, I am where I am with the Chiefs right now, offensive coordinator?
I honestly don't think. Once again, we're going to go through another offseason where he's not even going to get a sniff at a head coaching job. Unfortunately,
isn't that crazy though? And let's get right into it right now. Let's talk about the head coaches that were hired recently. You have the Jaguars hiring Doug Peterson, Raiders Josh McDaniels,
breaking news by the way,
Giants Dable, Broncos Hackett, Bears Eberflus.
Yep.
And we talk about the Saints, Vikings, Dolphins, and Texans without head coaches. But my thing is, we talk about Bieniemy and maybe other coaches that want to get into other coaches of color that want to get back into coaching. You have them proving themselves either as defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators of sort. And then you have a guy who stepped away from coaching for a year who comes back immediately into an NFL coaching job. And I'm talking about Doug Peterson to the Jaguars. How is that? How do you guys think about that situation?
I think it's a smart hire by the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, a Super Bowl winning coach, a guy who really didn't deserve to be fired. I mean, we all know it. The main reason he was
really
fired is because he wanted to pick his own personnel and how he didn't let him do it. So you're talking about a losing organization that has lost and 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 lost and
Had to deal with that Urban Myers.
And had to deal with Urban Meyer. They want to bring in somebody who's well established, good background, good history, former NFL quarterback, young quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, can work with him like he worked with Carson Wentz. What happened the first year with Carson Wentz? Obviously, I think 9-7 was the record, but improvement into the year 2. Carson Wentz was that MVP season, and they worked well together until things went off the rails. So I like the hire personally for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's going to be helpful for their image, and I understand where people are coming from. Hey, he hasn't been in the league for a year, whatever, but he checks so many boxes as a head coach.
It's about damn time that Doug Peterson got a job in the NFL. Like, seriously, if it's one guy,
though, too. If he wanted to come back last
you're
year,
right.
he probably could have, right?
You're right. Somewhat with that whole controversy with that last game.
Right, but you see what you're saying. It's about time. I mean, he took a year off and walks right back into the NFL with a head coaching position when there are other guys maybe more qualified right now who've still coached, who didn't take a year off, are looking for a head coaching job, and they have no place.
In this situation, but in this
disagree.
situation, you're talking about a guy who's a former Super Bowl winning head coach. You're talking about a guy who, up to that 1 year, only had one losing season. So arguably, yes, I see what you're trying to say. Doug Peterson, out of all those coaches, probably should have been the first guy hired. Now, it's not taken away from Eric Bieniemy. I've been saying for years that Eric Bieniemy should have had a damn head coaching job from day one. Todd Bowles should be in consideration for head coaching. Hell, Byron Leftwich should have been in more consideration for more head coaching jobs.
I agree with everything that you're saying. I think Eric Bieniemy would be a good head coach wherever he had the opportunity to. If Eric Bieniemy gets hired in Houston right now, and we're trying to fix this whole Rooney Rule situation, that might be the last thing we want as a society, because he's going to go in there, he's going to lose 10 plus 11 games or whatever.
Especially if the Deshaun Watson situation.
We gave him the opportunity. He sucked as a head coach, and boom, he's out of the league. We have to let these guys get good situations to come into. With the Jacksonville Jaguars, you want Brian Flores to go into Jacksonville and lose 12 games with no talent on that roster next year? No. Let a guy like Doug Peterson go in there who has a winning track record, who has a Super Bowl ring to walk into the building with on his finger, who's gone through the whole young quarterback process with Carson Wentz and now Trevor Lawrence. Like I just said, he checks so many boxes, and he can take the heat with a couple of losing seasons. You don't want a guy like Flores to go in there and lose 13 games, because then people are going to say, hey, look, he got the shot, he sucked. Now we're going to fire him.
I mean, in defense, you can arguably say that Brian Flores did the same thing with a young quarterback. And like I said, let's be honest here. Tua ain't exactly a world beater, but he still worked with what he had.
But here's the thing, Tua.
And he didn't play bad at the end.
No, he didn't.
He didn't, but Tua compared to how Carson Wentz played those first couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
Just
lights out.
Bounds ahead of
I mean, you're talking about Carson Wentz being an MVP those years.
And another reason I think Brian Flores got fired was he doesn't think Tua's the guy. He doesn't want Tua. I think it's the upper management and GM who said Tua's the guy. I don't think Brian Flores thinks Tua's the guy to have to lead that franchise.
Well, here's the thing with upper management, and that's one of the big things. You know, if an upper management, if they invest in somebody, especially a quarterback in the first round, they're not necessarily going to be like, you know, after year two, okay, we got to cut our losses and try to find another guy. No, you're going to try to figure this shit out, especially considering the fact that quarterbacks are a dime a dozen. You're going to try to see if that guy's one of the dozen.
I would love to see Eric Bieniemy, a guy like him with his offensive mind, go to a team like Minnesota to work with Dalvin Cook, to work with Jay Jeff, to work with Adam Thielen, Kirk Cousins. Say what you want about him. I know he hasn't done well as far as winning football games, but his stats say otherwise. He's been productive. I think Eric Bieniemy there with Kirk, with the talent surrounding him on the offensive side of the ball, could be a very good success story if he gets that chance.
Who's even going to want to go into a situation like there is in Miami now, especially made headlines? Do you want to be that puppet in Miami that it's making this seem like you will be if you are a head coach?
But do you want to go into Houston and deal with that situation also?
This is true. I mean, that situation in Miami is not a very good one. However, I will say this. Please, Houston Texans, if y'all are hearing this, please take Jonathan Gannon as your head coach. From what I hear, he is one of the candidates that they are strongly considering for their head coaching position. Please, for the love of God, get him out of Philadelphia.
Houston should have traded Deshaun Watson before this thing got bad.
I mean,
worse, I should say.
Well, once again, you're talking about you have a once in a generation quarterback who's a dime a dozen.
They don't have, who do they have? They have no picks. They're drained. They have Deshaun Watson, and he's not even able to play. If they just traded him before this thing went even far wayward, they could have had 3 first-round picks, 4 first-round picks, and they would have, first of all, they would be cleared of the Deshaun Watson situation.
This is
makes
true.
their image look a little bit better.
This is true.
And then they have pieces and assets to build around their team, become more attractive.
This is true.
Their fans would say, hey, okay, look, we're moving in the right direction. You just got to keep hitting these pegs. If they can get if they could have gotten a good head coaching hire, that would have been another box checked off the list. So then you're looking at, hey, we got a bunch of assets here. We got a good established head coach with maybe whoever it is, the enemy, Flores, whoever you want to say, even Doug Peterson before you got hired. You got a good established head coach, assets, and things are turning up. But now you're still dealing with the Watson thing. They waited too long. You don't have a head coach yet. And who wants to step into that situation?
I agree with you. There's not really a whole lot of coaches that really want to step foot in that situation, especially with the Deshaun Watson situation. I mean, you said they should have traded him. At the time, they're thinking to themselves, this is when around the time the accusations was first coming out. So in their minds, they're like, oh shit, well, let's try to get behind this guy. I mean, they're just accusations at this point.
Right.
So, once again, I'm going to say this to the day I die. Talented players are going to get a whole lot more leeway than your 53rd guy on the roster. I'm always going to say this. All right, you're talking about a once-in-a-generation type of talent in Deshaun Watson. Hell no, they were not just going to let that go. What I will say is their decline started, all right, when they hired, who was that coach that they hired a couple of years ago?
What team?
Texans.
They hired Bill O'Brien?
That's what I'm talking about. When they hired Bill O'Brien those years ago, and he started basically nuking a perfect team. I mean, all you needed was a couple more pieces to fill out the roles. Yeah. And you're talking about a Super Bowl winning team. And he just came in and basically traded players away. How the hell do you trade away one of the best wide receivers at the time in the NFL for a damn running back?
That started happening that was like his last season. That was when he was on his way out.
But he still didn't do that good building the team in the first place while he was there.
Well, he made the Texans playoff contending team.
He did. He helped with that, then got stupid. Right. But what I'm saying is his tenure is what started the destruction of the Texans.
For David Johnson, I think that's pretty stupid.
Yeah, and the Eagles had a chance at it.
Oh, God, don't remind me. Anyway, but that's what started the destruction of the Texans right then and there. Then you had players leaving. Then all that was left was Deshaun Watson. So let's be honest here. I mean, they've been a pretty crappy franchise for a nice little while now. I mean, you don't just let talent go, especially like J.J. Watt.
That's exactly. I agree with you. I mean,
J.J. Watt might be a little different of a situation.
Definitely different of a situation. One, he wanted to go somewhere and win,
and he had that with the Cardinals.
At also the same time, I will say this: the leader of the franchise for how many years? Again, that's another thing that's just going to hurt your image. A guy who's done so much for the city of Houston, outside the community, and for him to go away. I mean, it's literally all it is just another box after another in a negative section. And that's why they are where they're at right now.
Real quick before we end out our show for the day, let's move on to this Raiders hiring with Josh McDaniels. We've seen him for years and years in New England. How do we think he's going to fare as the head coach of the Raiders? And do you think that was an interesting decision because you have Rich Bisaccia leading the team after week 6? Gruden gets fired. He leads the Raiders to a 7-5 record and to the playoffs.
Well, first of all, is the ink dry on his contract first, so he can't just leave whenever he feels like it. So long as that ink is dry, okay, he's staying there.
He's there.
Okay.
Well, I mean, he could pull a Belichick and leave.
This is true as well.
I like Rich Bisaccia. I thought he was a good coach.
He was favorite in the locker room too. His players were vouching for him.
Yeah, and I was just about to get into that point. Bisaccia had the love of the locker room. As a matter of fact, how the hell do you go through that much scandal between the coach, between players,
and still
getting arrested,
and still get into the playoffs,
Yeah, that is very impressive.
And Derek Carr, who's not a world beater by any means. He doesn't. It's not like he has superstar talent on the. I mean, listen,
he played impressive this season.
Yeah,
he did have a good season statistically speaking. But at the end of the day, there's still 12 quarterbacks in this league that are probably better than him.
This is true, but that feeds into the point.
10.
But that feeds into the point of the reason why Bisaccia still had still
think
been
he
the
should,
head
yeah.
coach. He should have been made the head coach.
I think with Josh McDaniels is like all he's done his whole career is work with Tom Brady, right? I know he had a good season with Mac Jones. They got obliterated in the first round by 1 billion points. So, look, their division with the Jets, the Bills obviously are the Kings now. The Dolphins didn't have a great year. So it's not like his division was hard to get through. Of course, they got in as a wild card team. But Josh McDaniels' track record, is Derek Carr going to stay there? I know he's an unrestricted free agent, I believe. I'm expecting him to go back. But I don't see how he can just step in here. And I don't really, unless he makes the right hiring coaches for his assistants, somebody that can control the defensive side of the ball, because he is all offensive minded, of course, being an offensive coordinator in New England. We'll see. I think Josh Jacobs is going to carry on a huge load. We saw it a lot, really run heavy scheme with the Patriots this year. But on the offensive side of the ball, Darren Waller was banged up all year. So you'll get him back healthy, hopefully next season. Hunter Renfrow, talk about a guy who as far as receptions go. But other than that, Josh Jacobs and the rest of the crew, you're looking at a team and a roster that's pretty solid. It's just a question of
Yeah.
With that being said, Tanner, do you want to shut us down?
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about these two topics forever, but that's going to wrap up our show for this week. And if you don't already, follow us, all three of us, the Philly Experience Podcast and the Philly EXP1 on Twitter. Once again, I'm Tanner Go Martin. This is Tyre Hood. And that over there is Max Kretzula. Thank you for tuning in.
You sounding all professional and whatnot. I hear you.
Yes, sir.